Hi, Heather. Welcome to the Quantum Alchemist Mastered podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm actually very excited to learn a little bit more about your journey, especially because it includes a lot of the stuff that I love and that I've been through myself, including somatics, art, and a bunch of other surprises that you have to share with us. Please take the floor and tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you for having me, Rosalia. I'm so honored to be here. And yeah, sometimes when you start, I just don't know where to start with my story, but I'll just say I really struggled with my mental health for since I was 9 years old, actually. Um, yeah, it was something where I never really knew what was wrong with me, but it just seemed like I needed to be fixed. And I think this is something for people who struggle with mental health, they might find themselves saying as well. I just want to say right now, like, you don't need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. We just have to learn how to integrate with these aspects of our mental health, and there is healing for you out there. So, but yeah, so my life was always kind of feeling like it was in chaos. My 20s were very chaotic for me. Really struggled with self-harm, suicidal ideation. Um, struggled with keeping a job because of my mental health. I struggled with money. I struggled with everything. And, it's funny, at some point I learned about manifestation and I thought this would be like the answer, but it took me a long time to really like understand what creating our own reality really is. And it goes so much more than like a lot of the pop manifestation tips that you get. It's a deep journey of self healing that allows us to really begin to have the confidence to get out there and create what we want. So I just want to say to the listener that you have the power within yourself to transform and to create the life that you want. And I know that might feel hard, but believe me, I have been in some of the darkest places mentally, emotionally, and physically as well. Um, Definitely been in like really bad situations, especially because of my lack of job at times, like didn't pay my rent, got evicted, lived in my car for a couple of weeks, like situations like that. So, and just for anybody out there that's like, I don't know how to like start this work or whatever, like, it's possible for you. So, yeah.
How did you start kind of your own inner work? Because we hear a lot of the time, and 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 we'll expand more depending on what you say, because doing the work, in my personal opinion, is not cookie cutter, is not copy
Yeah.
and paste, is not, and the way you manifest is not copy and paste either. In my opinion, it's very personalized, and
Hmm.
unique as we are. Um, because what's gonna work for me, it's probably not gonna work for you. Or some
Yeah.
things may, and you may take what serves you and move on. So, and particularly in your case, how or at what age first did you say, okay, hang on, maybe there's something I can do about it? Um, and how did that shift start? Like, what were the first couple of steps that you took to make that change or that shift?
Yeah. It's funny because I'm surprised by what actually popped into my mind, but especially being somebody that struggled with depression, and still does at times. It was actually just yoga and movement that around when I was like 16, I got a yoga DVD or something like that. And I think that was like the first time I was exposed to that sort of thing. I definitely kind of I grew up in the Northwest in Seattle. Um, it's very depressing up there. It's hard to live with no sun. And I grew up with two parents who were just your kind of typical 90s parents. I was a latchkey kid, and I think they did the best that they could, but they were not very involved or anything or very aware that I was struggling with any sort of mental health stuff. And so, and they were not like very cultured, I would say. So it was not like I really knew what yoga was, even. I think I just started to hear about it or something around age 16. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get a yoga DVD. So I think I just was introduced to meditation at that time, like through the yoga video. And I started doing it every day and I started to feel better. I started to feel a little bit happier. Um, I think we know now very well that just exercise in general is really helpful for depression. Um, but there was still stuff, there was trauma there. And I won't get too much into trauma just because I don't want to like activate the audience, but it's around sexual abuse and stuff like that. And so we don't need to go into too much detail, but you can imagine that kind of stuff really stays in the body. So, um, you know, throughout this time period, let's say age 16 to throughout my 20s, I just still couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I would just have these moments where I was really easily triggered, or um, I would struggle in relationships too. Like have, a boyfriend that I had, it was just like when in my 20s, it was just really hard because I was just always so triggered by him because of who he reminded me of. And like it was just like all of my wounding was coming out in that relationship, which seems to be like a common theme I've noticed is like sometimes being in a relationship can really just be the mirror that we need to see what our wounds are. But yeah, I feel like that's where that journey started. And, I feel like my journey has just been like this way and then that way, like I'd fall off of doing the DVD, but then like 5 years later, I went to a Buddhist temple for the first time in my 20s and I started doing that for a while. And then, you just have seasons of life. And I think my journey has been very slow. And I wouldn't say until I was exposed to more somatic practices that I actually started to feel like things were changing for me. I did talk therapy for years. I've done, just all the thing like the self-help books, like everything, trying to read affirmations, which are not bad. Like I still like to do affirmations, but for me, it really has been like having a daily breath work or movement, visceral intelligence practice that has made me feel so much more embodied and grounded and integrated with all of that stuff that I've been living with.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, if I may.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for being vulnerable. I know how much courage it takes. And because we've done so much work today, we can sit here and look back at that. And first, I want to point out that I find very beautiful that you're open to sharing that you tried so many different avenues, because something that is very sad to me. I understand it's all perfect unfolding and the way evolution should, and the way each soul chose it, and so forth. So it's a little more complex than that, but it's still very sad to me that regardless of whatever avenues we choose to try to establish that connection back to self or back to the divine within ourselves, um it's heavily criticized by others. To me, I feel almost like, let's just say, humanity is caged in this matrix of thought, of limiting beliefs, of conditioning, right? And as long as that scale is tipping in the way of like fear, limitation, lack, separation, we're not going to see a difference in the collective actual reality, from where I see it. In my opinion, just hypothetically thinking, um, of that study that was done with the like monkeys inside a cage, and then they don't let the younger monkeys that are not used to it, they pull them down every time they're going to exit the cage. Automatic, they don't let them come out of the cage. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand this out of love. I don't, and that a lot of people are doing certain things or live in fear because they fear, like, you know, of the unknown, or no, I've never done it that way. That's not the way you do it. That kind of, or this is the only way. This is the only truth. So in that, that in itself, I find it very limiting because it's not allowing us to expand to our full capacity. Um, just like a baby, it's like, oh no, don't even try to walk. That's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
Well, baby's gonna, it's beautiful. It's hurtful. I mean, it's, I see the baby fall, trying to get up, but within, as long as you're not harming yourself or not harming another human being, I feel it's okay to explore. It's okay to try different avenues. It's, as long as you're not spiraling down into any heavy stuff,
Yeah.
it's all right. You're not harming anybody else, you're not harming yourself, and you're learning. And it feels
Yeah.
safe and it feels nurturing, and you're learning something new, right? Um, so thank you for sharing that there are more than one way of doing these things. I've heard lately, unfortunately, a lot of negative talk around yoga, around breathwork, around plant medicine, around guides, just around this whole spiritual realm, and around the awakening process, on how it's all bad and satanic and just the polar opposite, which is okay. It's beautiful if you have, that's fine. Potato, potato. We're all entitled to our own opinion. That's fine. But I can't help but to invite everyone to question everything, right? That's all I'm
Mhm.
saying. Question it. Why would you just take it for granted, right? Question it. Question absolutely everything in your life, your thoughts, the way you do things, your behavior, society, religion, all of it. Okay. And after you question it, if you come back 360 right where you were before, awesome. That's really good. That means everything was in alignment. Um, but from my personal experience, I can't help but to look back and look at all the different avenues and how, of course, I'm never going to be 100% with every single one, because maybe I wasn't raised in that religion, or I wasn't, I don't come from that lineage or that practice. There's always different things that have served me so well and I honor them and I respect them, and I have nothing but, just a lot of grace that they came in my life at the time that they did, because they pulled me out of a darkness, out of a hole, right? Whether it was meditation, yoga, Akashic records, whatever it was for me. So I see a lot of that with a lot of respect, and I respect everybody else's way and journey of getting there, and of communicating with the divine love and divine connection within ourselves. So in my opinion, that has evolved so much. Like daily, it evolves. It's different. I am different. My connection to God is different. The way we communicate and exchange energy and information is different. It's like a dance, right?
Yeah.
And little by little, you become a better dance partner. You learn new moves and right? Um, so how has that been the same for you? Do you feel kind of like your relationship with whatever you believe in, because I don't even know where you stand with this at this point. Um, how has that shifted? Like, were you an atheist at the beginning and then now, I don't know, whatever? How has that kind of shifted for you?
Yeah, I'm excited that you answered or asked me this question. And I love that you talked about the dance because I love dance and somatics. I love the idea of like we dance with the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it. And I just love that idea that it's like a tango or something. It's something like kind of almost even sensual in that way, where not sexual, but just I mean sensual, like that you just that you get to like move in this like smooth and easy way. But to answer your question, so Yeah, my journey of spirituality has been interesting in itself. I talked about my mental health journey, but with that, really, there is like a pairing of my spiritual journey. So when I was young, probably around similar age of 9, I was always really drawn to witchy things. It was the 90s, it was in vogue. Like, I remember all these shows and things like that. And I just loved the idea of being able to like have that kind of power and magic in my life. Not in like a bad way, but just like being a good witch or something. And it looks different now when people talk about these things, or it's spoken about differently now, I think. And so anyway, I had an aunt who really shut me down and scared the bejesus out of me, like in a real way, with like telling me that the devil was in my house and all this. So literally, like as a little kid, I thought that the devil was in my house and became really, really frightened by all of anything in that spiritual realm. Um, and my parents, by the way, are agnostic. Basically, we didn't talk about God ever. Um, and it's interesting just thinking about like my family. My dad grew up in like a very Catholic household, which is the aunt that I was talking to is his sister. So I think it was just like really strong there. And I sense, and him and I have never talked about this to this day, but I sense that like maybe he had something happen because he just doesn't talk about, like, I think he believes in God, but he just doesn't talk about like any of that stuff. Um, and my mom was always just like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Like you can, whatever
Very
religion you
open.
are. Yeah, she was really open. So I didn't grow up in a repressive household, but I think that what my aunt did kind of traumatized me. So I just kind of was like shut down. Was like, I was even just like scared to go to church, like, because I had friends and other family members that would go and they'd be like, do you want to go? And I'd be like, like I was scared. Um, like I felt like I lost trust in God basically because I thought like, how can this be, like this? That there's sort of this like evil and there's this good, and then they're just like, it's like a battle. Um, and so yeah, I think that again, just like as I was introduced to meditation, I was more open to the possibilities. And when I was in my early 20s, I started eating at this Hare Krishna cafe. And there was this woman and this man that ran the cafe. And I started going to temple with them. And that was like a little chapter of my life where it was like, it felt good to go to temple and like, and they did dancing, and it's just different at a Hare Krishna temple. And, it was just fun to be exposed to a different culture too. And it felt like a loving family. And eventually they moved. So like that chapter of my life went, and I really thought I would be like a devout Hare Krishna Hare Krishna devotee for the rest of my life. But, I evolved and changed. And it was interesting because actually not long after that, because I was still in my mental health struggle, that was soon after that I was evicted from my home. I was like on the street for a couple of weeks until I could move into another housing situation. And it wasn't long after that that I was just like, I'm done. Like, I don't believe in God. Like, he's just not there for me. So I just don't feel it. I just didn't feel it. I had cut myself off from myself, basically, is the way I see it. Um, just started getting involved in like using more drugs and drinking every day and stuff. And that went on until my late 20s. and and that's actually when um I don't know why I picked it up, but like I had already been introduced to like the secret and manifestation, and I was like secretively like reading affirmations, and I was secretively making vision boards, but I didn't want anyone to know. So but I was still like, I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. Like for years of my life. Um and I feel like it's only been in the last 5 years actually that I'm like out spiritually. because I think there was like this whole other side of interestingly enough, and I didn't mention this earlier, but some of my family members are also atheists. So I was like on team atheist. And then when I was like, I'm not Christian and I'm not atheist, everyone hates me. And I think it's just funny because it all comes down to like we need to explore and be our most authentic selves. And for me, I haven't really fallen into any box. I'm just
You
trying to
know,
connect with that greater consciousness all the time.
do you mind if I interrupt you there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So from where I stand, if as a collective we could find and respect the beauty of our differences and our own personalized journey. Well, I have to look at the spiritual meaning. What was that, a fly? Because
Yes.
that's got to be
Yes.
a message.
It's
I think that's a
it's been hanging
confirmation. We
around.
have a yes from the
Yes, we have
universe.
a yes. There's a fly in the
Thank you,
room.
universe.
Yeah, I'm like,
So, you know, um, if we could just, I've been through so many religions, looking for God outside myself, and that didn't really shift until my near-death experience.
mhm,
My perception of God. And my perception is my perception. And even that
mm,
is changing, right? You don't
mm,
have to agree with that perception. Nobody does. It's a personal relationship. It's very unique to each one of us. So, of course, you're not going to fall into any box. You're not going to fall into any, and that's okay. You could follow the crowd. That's fine. You could belong to a religion. That's beautiful. Be there as long
yeah,
as you're happy there. Be there as long as you feel welcome. Be there as long as you agree with what's being shared. And when it's no longer the case, I hope that you can find courage within yourself to move on, to listen to your heart, to wherever you do feel safe, wherever you do feel love. And I've come down to, because I work with so many people from so many different backgrounds, and that's the people I attract to work with because I don't see any difference. And by doing the sessions with them, and sometimes their higher self will come in or their guides will come in, and it, of course, it varies depending on what their belief system is. And I find that so beautiful. So what I would like to invite everyone listening is just to be like a child, to open up. Nobody's enforcing any beliefs upon you. You don't have to be spiritual, you don't have to be atheist, you don't have to believe in God. But if we could focus as a collective in values and virtues, right? So a lot of the religions have a lot of things in common. They go by the golden rule, right? Kind of like do unto others as you want others to do unto you, respect and love one another, help the sick, be kind, don't kill, just like little standard things, that are, I don't know, I guess what you would call like someone with integrity or with some sort of, with a good open heart. Um, and if we could just all focus on doing that within ourselves, we would just have a better world, period. And we would, in my opinion, come back to oneness. And when I mean oneness, I don't mean I don't want you to be like me. I mean just oneness in regards to more kindness, to more love, to more peace, to dialogue, to respecting, to biodiversity, to respecting every life form, respecting Mother Earth, co-creating with Source, just opening up our consciousness to something different, to love, coming back to love, back to our essence. It's we have these imaginary, let's just say, this war between good and evil, right? That is exists in every religion, is portrayed in many different ways. Um, And a lot of times is also that light and darkness within ourselves. Ah, there it is again.
I know. It's so funny.
That light and darkness within ourselves, right? That we have to kind of balance those polar opposites. Um, so with that being said, that flight just it took me off my track,
Yeah.
right? The idea I had. Um,
No
all
worries.
I'm saying is if we can look at our similarities rather than our differences, a lot of us could get along more, could collaborate more beautiful things could be born in this world. So I invite everybody, if your family, if your partner, if somebody is not in the same boat as you, please let's not try to enforce our beliefs or our limitations, even because that could crush someone's dream, someone's life, someone's maybe they want to go for a business or an idea and you just your own limitations because you have not been able to follow your own, you bring them down, or you're being negative on that person. Let's encourage the person. Let's be there, let's be supportive. Just kind of shifting that mindset individually and then to be able to rip it out as a collective, right? Hopefully our kids will be able to watch that we've changed, our partner, and hopefully that will be like, huh, maybe I should kind of look into looking within, or being more kind, or whatever, or going to church, whatever works for everybody. It's beautiful. So just kind of
Mm.
more in regards to that. But after this whole spiel, I wanted to move into somatics and art specifically, because that's been
Yeah.
two big parts for me. Number one, tell me a little bit more about what are some of the somatics that you use specifically to dance? Are there any particular dance or movement, or is it free flow, etc.? Or like what do you like to do, or what you have explored? And then it would be into art, same thing. Actually, you're majoring, right? In regards to something in regards to art. Yeah. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so if you can tell us a little bit more about kind of like the Soma and the art avenues and roads and what you've tried, what has worked. And then from there you kind of can tell us how you actually merge these and work with people, and what is it that you do and you share.
Yeah. Okay. I'm ready. I have been so excited since I learned about somatics. Like I said, there's that fly again. Um, since I learned about somatics, because I just want to share it with the world. It always is just comes down to three things. So somatics can consist of sound, movement, or breath. And we talked about this on my podcast a little bit, but sound can be like humming, right? Humming activates that vagus nerve. It puts you in the parasympathetic state. So we can be more in that rest and relax state. Um, and sound, so I said sound, and then obviously breath work. There's different breath work patterns that you can do to either activate or to relax. And then with movement, a lot of my movement is focused on using visceral intelligence to help move stagnant energy out of the body. So in a session, let's say we'll work a lot with a body scan first, and then we kind of do this exploration that's sort of like parts work. And if people don't know what parts work is, it's called internal family systems. You can look it up, but it's really this idea that we have many, many parts of ourselves, and we actually can hold this somatically in our body. So you might be like, oh my gosh, like the 5-year-old in me that always wanted to be an artist lives right in my heart, and she feels so heartbroken, and I can see her, and I can see that she's wearing a red dress and whatever, you can start to like have a lot of visual stimulation as we do this visceral intelligence exercise. And I'll invite people into some like intuitive movement to like kind of let more be released. It's kind of like what are those called when you like those things you crack on the side of the road that they have the little fire, the having a total brain fire, but when you like crack it, it goes on fire,
Yeah,
the flares.
flares.
um it's like it kind of like opens this thing up, and from there we can do somatic practices to help support the body. So if somebody needs to do some humming or some breathing or some sort of intuitive movement to help themselves feel, because the more we feel it, the more we heal it. The easier it is to be present with the emotional pain that lives inside of us, the more it sort of dissipates and the more we can integrate with it. And I've been really liking this idea of integration, by the way, because I think I want to circle back to something I said earlier, which is like I always felt like I needed to be fixed. Like I need to be healed. I need to be fixed. And I was always searching. And I just really want to invite people into this idea of integration because we have all these parts of ourselves, these aspects, and we can't just make them go away. They're a part of our woven story. And so with the expressive arts practice, which I didn't say, but so yeah, right now I'm getting my master's in counseling and it's an expressive arts focused program. And so we use things like dance therapy, we use music therapy, we use visual therapy, we can use cinema therapy, which is one of my favorite things. If
That
you're
is so
somebody that
cool. I was just
yeah,
looking at that today. It popped up on my phone. I thought it was the coolest
really?
thing. Yeah.
Oh, yes, like I think that there's so many different ways we can use cinema to help ourselves transmute emotions to help us process. I was just talking about I was talking about this with my husband because we watched this movie recently called It's Kind of a Funny Story. It's about a young boy who goes he gets he has a 5150 place on him, so he has a mandatory hold in a mental health facility. And I think it's a great one for teens to watch who are struggling with mental health. So it's just like we can use these films to help people be like get a sense of hope of getting through a story. Be like, I relate to that story. We can do our own story writing to tell our story and maybe give ourselves a happy ending. All of these things can help us be more fully expressed. And so my focus in my program, because you kind of have to narrow it down, has definitely been dance. And so I use a lot of just intuitive dance, ecstatic dance. Um, and I've done pole dance. I've been wanting to learn belly dancing. And so just trying different dances. There's different research even for like, as you might know, like for Parkinson's. And like recently there was a study about how dance is beating out SSRIs in terms of helping people with depression, which is incredible. And this is dance is beating out exercise for beating depression. So I dance every day. I dance every morning. I dance to at least one song, if not two. If I have time, I go 30 minutes, you know. Um, and so, yeah, I just like, I love dance and I love movement. And I think if we can take it even further into another artistic modality that feels good and you feel drawn to, it's such a beautiful and spiritual experience to be able to find ways to express ourselves and allow ourselves to integrate and, you know, see ourselves in the story that we've lived so far and that we are continuing to create and live in. So
You know,
yeah.
I'm fascinated by everything you've said. Maybe because I resonate with all of it, but and it's been a big part of my journey. But to me, the divine uses whatever brings us into that flow state as inspiration, as a moment where we can just connect and be in flow with the divine. In my opinion, whether it be grief, sadness, or whatever it is, but you're in that, it's just a flow state. It's just you're just immersed, lost in it. You're just so present.
Yeah.
You're present and presence at the same time in the now moment, which is one of the few times where you're not worried about the future or worried about the past.
Yeah.
Um, so I have been considering for the past month um doing Afro-Cuban dancing. And well, of course, now you mentioned this, and I'm like,
Do
I'd say
it.
yes. And if the fly comes before we drop the podcast, that would be another yes for me. Okay. So
Yeah.
that I'm expecting it now.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so yeah, and I'm taking art classes. I love painting. I do these weird, I learned they're called, I think blind drawing or no, blind contouring. That's what I do. I don't even know what I do because I
Oh,
just do it automatically. So I don't know that it had a name or
yeah.
anything. Pretty much I just
I'll have to look it up.
grab a canvas or a paper or whatever. I start on one end and there's one continuous line and I make different things without lifting the actual.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes I do it with
Great.
my eyes closed and sometimes I just paint it with my eyes open, depending on how I feel inspired to do it. And I make the randomest, weirdest stuff. And I love it. I feel there
Mm.
are no thoughts, no worries. I am in flow. It's purely therapeutic. I'm just like in awe, like my brain is just like in
Yeah.
heaven. So I just started art class and I just started reading The Artist's Way as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yay! Um, so I don't know. Just now, I have never before done anything artistic ever. So
Hmm.
just now I'm allowing myself, I feel, to be more in balance with my feminine because I was operating in my masculine for so long.
Yeah.
And it has helped me so much in every way. And I feel that therapy um, that we have now could include or start including so much more somatics and therapy and aromatherapy and all of these different kind of like a 360 approach rather than a cookie cutter approach. Here's your SSRI, here's your first line of treatment. Good luck with that. I hope you don't
Yeah.
commit suicide. Don't quit abruptly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like, especially if we've been through it, we want to be the example to offer something different to other
Absolutely.
people. It's like we probably use our challenges and and whatever we went through to create what we wish we had when we were going through it. Or at least that's how I
Yeah.
see it.
I completely agree with that. I think that I would have benefited so much from art therapy and somatics. I think I spent so long just talking, and people don't, especially when there's trauma involved, like people don't talk about trauma. They don't just say, well, this terrible thing happened, by so and so when I was 9 years old or whatever. And that's like people don't process that way. A lot of those things are suppressed, and there's different like types of talk therapy, of course, that like depth psychology and stuff that can help people verbally process. But I just feel like, for me at least, I've just fallen in love with nonverbal processing. So yeah, I think it's really like having like creating a space where people can be guided. I feel like I don't have the answers. I just want to create a space where you can discover them within yourself.
It's
Um,
beautiful. I love
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
I share very much the idea of guiding people within for answers.
yeah,
That's what I'm all about.
yeah,
We're there for support. We're there to guide you. We're there to share our tools. But ultimately, it's really there's a lot of responsibility that relies on them if they really want to change. They have to be able, willing, open, right? So if you tell
yeah,
me to moo like a cow and it works as weird and quirk as it sounds,
yeah,
if I'm not willing and open, I'll be like, F you, I'm done. This session doesn't work for me. This is BS.
yeah,
Yeah, so you have to
yeah,
be able. willing and open to try new things, and um, especially from somebody who's actually tested them and been through it themselves. So what does
Yeah.
working with you look like? Like, what are some of the stuff? Is this some of the same stuff you bring into a session? How long is the session? Is it a couple of sessions? Do you do like an interview first to kind of determine what the person needs? Like, how does that look like?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Honestly, a lot of people will just do one-offs. I get people that will sign up for like 8 weeks or something, especially when they're really going through something hard, like a divorce or like a job transition or something like that. Um, Usually people will want to work with me a little bit longer around that, but I love that like one session can be so powerful for people. Excuse me. Um, and so yeah, I just will send them a little bit of a questionnaire. We won't really do a consultation per se. Just kind of emailing if they want to tell me what's going on. Because again, that's more cognitive and like verbal processing. And so in a session, it's pretty typically the same unless I can tell that the person has just shown up and they're really dysregulated, then we need to like do some immediate like regulation. So sometimes that happens, but so whatever tool we might use, I will explore that with them, like what would feel good. So it might be some breath work, it might be some sound, it might be some movement. Um, but if they come in, which most people do, they come in and they want to talk for, so I give them 15 minutes. I give 15 minutes max to verbalize what's going on. And then from there we check in with the body. I always do a body scan with people. I think body scans are like the most basic, most powerful tool. Like literally, I will spend 3 minutes throughout my day just to like check in with my body because it's so easy to ignore until you get home at the end of the day. You notice that most people, like when you're working 40 hours a week or whatever, you get home and you're just like, wow, like my shoulder hurts. Like I didn't notice it all day, but it's not until we finally are in that safe, calm space that we can actually start to notice our bodies. So it's good to do consistent body scans and checking in. But so with the session, we'll do that visceral intelligence exercise and we'll start to really drop in, be the observer of our experience and see what starts to come through. A lot of people do get those visuals, like I was talking about, where they start to like see shapes and colors, and we might start talking to it. What is that? What's there for you? What's alive for you? How is that feeling? Does it feel tense? Does it feel open? And so we just begin to explore what's alive for them in their body. Some people that don't have as many visuals might just get, because we have like the five senses. So some people might start hearing something. They might start saying, like, oh, I'm getting another sort of somatic thing. They might start feeling like goosebumps or whatever. It's so different for everyone. And so with that, we're just really exploring what's within them. And that's where I'm just like, I'm not the wise person that knows all the end all be all. Like you are the knower, the truth seeker of your own soul and your own body. And so with that, that's where I will invite them to ask those things that they're seeing or feeling or hearing, what they need, right? It always comes back down to like, how can we meet our own needs? And that doesn't mean that we don't need people, but we do need to learn how to find, if you want love, if you want abundance, if you want health, it already lives inside of you. You just have to unblock and move the stagnant energy out of your body that's preventing it from being expressed.
I love
So I
that.
hope that answers that clearly.
Yeah, and I feel like when we do the session, which I have to get back to you on that, I feel
Yeah.
like in some ways a lot of us um use similar techniques in our own way, but
Yeah.
again, very similar to religion, there's like common threads,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So after we do it, I'm gonna probably be asking you how is it similar to the stuff that you do, because from what you're describing, there's a lot of similarities. So it's very interesting how different ways of working still we come back to, okay,
Yeah.
your body has those answers. It knows, it has wisdom, you know.
Yeah.
And I love the focus on kind of like being self-sufficient with a guide until you get the hang
Yeah.
of it, and then you can
Yeah.
doing the practices yourself. And if you ever need me, I'm a ring away. Type you know.
Yeah, I really believe in that because I kind of hate the idea of like guru
Oh no.
addiction or something where it's like, yeah, I don't want you to have to like depend on me. I want you to like, this is a liberatory practice. Like, we want to liberate you and know that you don't have to depend on the wisdom of others to know like it's already inside of you. Yeah, it's interesting because with what you were saying, like I've worked with other guides myself that have done similar-ish things too, but it just hits different, you know, like you're gonna be in a container with somebody, everybody's energetic medicine is different, you know. And I think that's important, like when like for the listener, when people are or when you're looking for someone, like you want to feel safe with them, you want to feel like they're um not judging you or whatever it is that you're needing, right? Like you can just feel that if their medicine is a good match for you.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And is there any last messages you want to leave the listeners with? Also, where they can find you? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I just my whole thing like has just come down to love, you know. It's easy for me to say just love yourself, you know, because I know that if you're listening right now and I'm like almost about to cry because I've been there, you know. Um if you can just if you're having a hard time loving yourself, can you just accept yourself right now? Can you just look in the mirror and say, okay, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. Can you just start there? And it always comes down to just knowing that there is so much love for you out there. And by the way, I was trying to remember what the phone number for the suicide hotline was last time we were on my podcast. And I just wanted to share it real quick, but it's 988. So if anyone out there is struggling with that, even if you're like, oh, I'm not really like, even if you're like level one, had the thought, like call them. They're so nice. I've called them myself. People are there for you. So mental health is really big to me, obviously. So that's kind of my last thing is just like reach out for people. And it's okay if in your head you're just like, I wish I could take a month off and that people would bring me soup every day. Well, maybe that can be arranged. I don't know, but like it's okay to have those thoughts.
Yeah.
um yeah, and then as far as connecting with me, I have my own podcast, obviously. Celia was a guest, and I'm excited for your episode to come out. And so that's called For the Love of Self. And that's like channeled to me, that business name was channeled to me, I swear, because I was thinking about this idea of like, you know, how people say, like, oh, for the love of God, you know, like I would just say like for the love of self, like I needed to, you know, I mean, God's still there. We're, you know, but we're connected. It's all one, you know. Um, so I have the For the Love of Self podcast, and then my Instagram handle and TikTok handles are a little bit different variations of that because you know there's For the Love of dot self is my Instagram handle. So anyway, I guess we can just make sure we put the
Well, we'll
links
put
in
it
the
in the
show notes.
description. That's no
Yeah.
worries. That's
Yeah,
fine.
so I'd love to if you ever need to chat with somebody, don't be shy, just DM me. I'll send you resources. You know, you don't have to feel obligated to work with me, but I do care about people's mental health, so I'll definitely send you resources. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor to
Thank
have
you.
you. I'm looking forward to us working together. I love your energy. Um,
You too.
I do feel that you embody um the work that you do. because you've been through it, and you know right away when somebody's walked the path. So thank you
Mm,
so much.
thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for having me here, and thank you everyone for listening.
My pleasure.